Why does he say he only feels friend feelings, but he does everything that a boyfriend does? So I cannot know for sure, but I can venture a guess. And that is that it's probably due to some degree of emotional and boundary confusion. When we have not been taught how to properly identify our feelings. And remember, we are defining feelings as energy moving through our bodies. And when we've got big energy, unless we've had a lot of support in identifying the subtle nuances of the different threads of energy moving through us, we oftentimes use rudimentary or basic words to describe our energy. And so we start writing a story about, I'm a stressed out person, I'm an anxious person, I'm this, I'm that. But the reality is you actually have any number of various and subtle, maybe conflicting, maybe related emotions and energetic threads moving through you at any time. But we haven't had the opportunity to create the emotional and visual vocabulary around organizing energy states. So maybe you're feeling any number of things. You're happy, you're sad, you're anticipating, you're excited, you're also a little anxious, you're doubtful but confident. All that's going on inside. But because we haven't had the proper supports in sifting and sorting through that energy, we just call it anxious. Oh, I've got all this stuff and I don't know what to define. So it's anxious. And because I don't know how to organize this, I'm just going to push or pull away from something until that big feeling goes away. Right. And so now we've got this very rudimentary kind of basic language for what we're experiencing. And when we don't know something, we respond with fear and we respond in big extreme ways. So this is that splitting that occurs, all good, all bad, all in, all out. And then we wind up sabotaging relationships, ending them prematurely or clinging to them longer than we should because we don't understand the gray areas. We don't understand the subtleties. And so we respond to things in extreme ways. We cling too tight. We let go too soon because we're not able to navigate the in-between spaces. So when this happens, it's likely that this individual that you're asking about, or even just anyone who experiences this, may not have been taught to properly identify their feelings or to truly understand that there's a difference between romantic passion, abiding love, and friendship, because they're not the same thing, but it is really delicious when they can occur simultaneously. And we tend to experience these things when they do occur simultaneously as kind of a gestalt, right? So what is a gestalt? Well, a gestalt is something that is made up of smaller component pieces, but when we look at it, we perceive it as a whole. So you might imagine like a bar sign that's lit up by a bunch of little light bulbs. And so when you look at the bar sign, you just see the name of the bar. You don't necessarily look at each little light bulb, but the name is constructed of a bunch of little light bulbs. And if you were to start to pick away each one of them, no longer would you be able to read the name. And so the experience of being in a bonded relationship is a gestalt. When we haven't been taught how to sift and sort through the big energy moving through our bodies and accurately put naming words to those feelings or those emotions, what happens is we just see the bar sign and we assume it's all made up of one thing. And we're not able to sift through the subtleties of that. But it is made up of component pieces. And in this case, romantic passion, love, friendship. So when we're not able to see something for its component pieces or sift and sort through it, and we have to because there's a conflict, sometimes we don't have to because there's no conflict. So it's easy enough just to hang out with the bar sign as it is and assume that everything's flowing together because everything's flowing well. And there's a sense of ease and there's just a natural coming together. And that does happen, especially when you have people who are really compatible. But when you have people who may not be so compatible, then this is when we start to experience friction or confusion. And some of the light bulbs might be a bit spotty. So this is when it's necessary for us to dig into the unique threads of that tapestry and start to sift and sort through, what is that feeling here? What is that feeling there? And understanding that, so this feeling is vibing more on a friend level than it is on a romantic one. Or this feeling is vibing more on a kind of unconditional love, but I don't know that this love is going to translate into passion long-term, right? So it sounds like this person that you are experiencing conflict because they seem to be happy enough to just putter along, calling it friendship and acting like it's more than that, but you are experiencing confusion around that and or wanting more of any one of these categories. So that's why it's being drawn to your attention. So for this person who may want to be called friends, but appears to be acting on these other levels as well. For this type of person, they can slip into occupying just one of these roles without properly identifying the others, even as they are expressing them, because they don't recognize it in themselves, number one. Or number two, there can be a part of them that doesn't want to label it that way. They're afraid it's going to encourage a variety of big expectations that stimulate fears of failure or of not measuring up in some way. For some, there could be performance anxiety, things like that. And so for them, just sticking with the role of friend and then expressing and enjoying the benefits of these other roles without naming them is more than enough, because, well, here I'm doing it. I don't need to claim it because that's going to bring up all my fears, but I'm doing it. So can't you just be happy with that? So for some, that's more than enough, right? For others, the label itself is really important. Claiming that for oneself, feeling claimed, is really important because of their own history, needs, and desires. So whether you're someone who feels this powerful need for labels and claiming versus whether you're someone who feels like the labels are less important, the fact that I show up and I act in my integrity is more important. Really, I think what's more important here is to acknowledge what is the underlying need and the intensity around the compulsion to reject or to grasp for, right? So what is the intensity of the energy around either circumstance? Because that's going to point you towards the seed of what's coming up to be processed and integrated in this dynamic. Because what's happening is whether you're desperately seeking for a label or you're desperately rejecting the label, they're both vibing at the same velocity, right? They're both vibing at the same level intensity around the same topic, but it's in equal and opposite ways, which tells me that there's a shadow projection going on, that they're both working with the same wound, but they each are addressing it in an equal and opposite direction. So oftentimes this is what's catalyzing growth and also what's magnetizing you to each other, because there's that reliving in the hopes of integrating and revising that wound going on. If any of this is resonating with you, if any of these themes, topics, questions have come up for you, I would love to know how that has manifested in your experience in the comments or in the chat. Also, remember to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I put out videos once a week and I wouldn't want you to miss out.